Greetings and one love to each and every one of you, wherever you are in this beautiful world. Life is not as we expected, yet we can always make it better. That is the art of living. And I'm here to share these secrets, these concepts with you. I'm Dr. Daniel Sedig, a clinical psychologist and a licensed marriage and family therapist in Los Angeles. Looking forward to share today the topic of perfectionism. Well, many of us expect something perfect out of everything. We want things to be excellent at the highest level. Some of us are high achievers and we set high goals, but not necessarily we are perfectionists. But the tendency of the perfectionism is always creating a problem if we get stuck with that dogmatic way of thinking, which is called black or white thinking. What black or white thinking means that we're either in that perfect position. Imagine if you have a bell curve, you're always on top of this bell curve at the perfect or 100%. Or if you're not there, you'll be in the margin of the error in the lowest part of the curve, which is not acceptable. So that would make you wrong. So it's right or wrong, white or black. The dichotomy thinking of this type of personalities creates a trait which we call perfectionism. This trait is characterized by a person striving for flawlessness, to set high performance and expectations in every situation that they're involved with. That creates more critical understandings of themselves and people around them. It makes life hard for them and also for the people around them. So let's find out what would be considered a perfectionist. What kind of people are perfectionists, and if so, then we can discuss how these traits could be hopefully replaced with something. The question is, a lot of people ask me, if I'm a perfectionist, can I change it? I truly believe that we can change anything that we don't desire to have. We have the capability of just reorganizing the way that we look at things. And in perfectionism, we hopefully get to that point to see how we can reorganize our thought process, our behavior in a way that we can reduce this perfectionism. As I said, perfectionism is being at the height of a bell curve, and we can just agree that we can come a little bit lower to the sides of this high point. So what are the traits of a perfectionist? Number one, there is no room for mistakes. This person cannot allow anything go off a bit. And when they are not exactly as expected, then they will feel anxious, disappointed, and upset. Things are not acceptable to them in that way. Now imagine if you're living with someone like that, what would happen? Everything that you do is under a microscope, and the moment that you're not satisfying that person's wishes in the way that they're imagining it, it's going to be a problem. However, at work, this kind of personality works pretty well. At work, you can have this attitude, and your employers, your clients will be thrilled to have you meticulously go through all of the orders, all of the concepts, the processes, and you'll do a relatively perfect job. But then how is that going to be working on you? That's the question that I would like you to answer for yourself. The second trait that we can consider is things are done in a very specific manner, which in sometimes we can see OCD or OCPD personalities, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, and obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which one of them is just the anxiety disorder, the first one, OCD, and then when it becomes personality disorder, it's more ingrained, it's more inner processes of the mind, which is making it even harder to change that kind of perfectionism. So a person who is just looking for things in a specific manner is going to be very much tied up with the boxes, with the way that they are framing their mind. And this thinking in the box is a big problem, because once we are inside of this box, we don't have any privilege of seeing what's happening on the outside. We're just focused and honed in into what's going on through our minds without considering what's going on the outside for other people around us. Again, in relationships, this is going to be a big problem, because that perfectionism, or in the OCD type, is requiring someone to do things in a very particular way, and they're not accepting anything that is not in that order. You can see it, in a lot of movies. You can have those personalities. One of the movies that I really enjoy watching this type of personality is As Good as It Gets, with Jack Nicholson. That's a very good indication of this type of personality. The other part of perfectionism is all or nothing. It has to be all of it. It cannot be a part of it. And if it's a part of it, is not acceptable. Which, that kind of a holistic look in life is a good look. However, this holistic look cannot be, again, rigid. It cannot be perfect. So when it becomes a rigid mindset, a way that we are not we cannot be flexible, and we're not able to change our minds about something, that creates another obstacle for this type of personalities, who are going to be very hard to deal with. The other part of it is feeling annoyed and disrespected if the results are not attained. So if I have a self-fulfilling prophecy that I have to be perfect, you see, the same thing that these perfectionists desire from other people begins inside of them. So it's for them that they want things to be perfect. So if things are not working out in the way that I think, then I'm not good enough, then I'm bad, then I'm not perfect, and that creates a bigger issue inside and eats me up. So in order to avoid that, they just tend to be more and more and more on that perfect diagram, and get themselves up in the bell curve. Extremely hard on themselves. These characters are very, very, very disciplined in certain ways, which, again, in some places we appreciate them for the discipline. We can see that, oh my God, they're doing such a good job. They do this every day. But then we don't realize that these could be signs of certain emotional or psychological disorders. The perfectionists tend to be somehow in many of these disorders. As I said, in OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, in social phobias, generalized anxiety, eating disorders, addictions, what else? Body dysmorphic disorder, and also physically they may suffer from fibromyalgia, stress disorders, which are very much ingrained inside of the person, and also heart failures or heart conditions. So physically, mentally, and emotionally, a perfectionist will be kind of in danger of self-harm without realizing, while probably they get praised in some level for their abilities to achieve that kind of perfect results. Once you sit with them or you go into their relationships and their lives, you can see that perfectionism is not working inside of their lives, and unfortunately creating more problems. When I work with couples and one of the spouses or partners are a perfectionist, then you can see that how this relationship after a while starts to fall apart, because the difference becoming a big factor in not loving each other the way they started loving each other. If everything you do gets on my nerves and I'm not okay with how you do things, and I'm agitated, I'm feeling disappointed and let down, so my distance from my partner becomes more and more, and we are not going to be able to patch this up in a simple way. Well, that happens in many relationships, and I hope people can look a little bit more carefully into this behavior as a source of a lot of problems. Another one is feeling at fault with what they don't achieve. So feeling guilty, feeling at fault, feeling that I have made a mistake by not doing this, that creates another layer of disappointment for them, and then they start reacting to that, and the self-criticism starts coming. The standards that these people are setting are very high. So in order for you to be in their level, you have to jump pretty high. In that regard, the expectations of you being like them becomes again a part of the problem, and we are giving up at some point, and we are not able to fulfill their need for that kind of satisfaction, and that creates more of a void and a distance between you and a perfectionist. Another one is right or wrong thinking, which we pointed out in the beginning. If I'm not right, then I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I cannot be right, which is not true. This is a spectrum. There is no right or wrong. Yes, there is appropriate and inappropriate. Yes, there is lawful and unlawful. However, there is a huge spectrum between both of these two polarities, which in human terms, as long as it's not about laws that are, you're guilty if you're not obeying the laws, then there is really no guilt feeling. And then if you're feeling guilt for any reason, that guilt feeling is associated with some sort of an emotional or mental discomfort and issue or a trauma that is not resolved yet. So feeling guilty is another one that hopefully we will assign a whole program to it. Here we're just pointing out in regards with perfectionism and how a perfectionist, if is not achieving that high standard that they desire, they can be feeling that loss and again disappointed at themselves and failed. They have good eyes for finding mistakes. A perfectionist can look at you and just find something wrong. My glasses are up or down from one side, or why I'm wearing a t-shirt under my shirt. These are, the things that can bother a perfectionist, but anybody else who's looking at this picture would just be okay with the way that I'm representing myself, and they wouldn't find a fault. But a perfectionist will look for a fault in any situation, and they look for the smallest things that it can, disturb them. Then the last one is, a perfectionist is always looking for the end results. They miss out on the process. The process is usually the joyful part of anything, not the destination. Imagine that if you're going somewhere let's say from Los Angeles, you would like to go to Santa Barbara, and your goal is reaching Santa Barbara. Then in the middle of this way, from LA to Santa Barbara, there are so many beautiful places. There are so many, fields and flowers and vegetations that you can look at, the ocean. And imagine that you don't pay attention to anything on the way there, and you just want to get to Santa Barbara. That's how life for a perfectionist is. They just would like to reach that end goal at any cost and just aligning themselves to that goal. However, if we enjoy the process and every step of it, we can just have a different outcome. So these are some of the characteristics that somebody who tends to be a perfectionist will have. And now let's figure out, is there any way that we can overcome this? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is psychotherapy. Why? Because they cannot realize this themselves, how this perfectionism is disturbing them. So most of the time when I have the privilege of working with perfectionists is that they are in relationship problems, and they come to me for the relational issues. And once we start looking into the relationships, we start realizing the relationships cannot be really fulfilling for them because of this underlying issue of perfectionism. Interesting enough, I work with a lot of attorneys. Attorneys tend to have, in general, that kind of a tendency. Probably one of the reasons they gravitate towards the law and the field of lawyership is for that reason, the underlying tone that they want to be in the right or wrong business. And that creates, again, a dynamic inside of them that makes it difficult for them to have fulfilling relationships. There are certain other professions also that have these tendencies, but I don't want to diagnose the professions. I just would like to talk about how we are wired in a certain way for different reasons. And the reasons, again, could be somewhat maybe genetic, our predispositions in our families. There, this kind of a extreme way of looking at life being presented for generations after generation, and then you may be suffering from that because generationally it's transferred to you, just like any anxiety. Or it could be from the traumas or events in the childhood and young adulthood, because through these traumas we create defense mechanisms, and these defense mechanisms are there to protect us. Our mind is looking for ways to relieve us from pressures and the pains that we are experiencing in life. So as a young person, this inner child is understanding the solution by doing things to excel. So if I'm doing these perfectly, nobody is going to find fault at me and they love me more. Or if I'm so perfect, I get more respect, I get more adoration, I get more attention. And for all of these reasons, the child, the young adult, tends to be more perfect in order to satisfy the need for love, for attention, for care, for being good enough. In these cases, now therapy really helps because we can reverse the understanding through going through the system of the psyche of the person and figuring out why these defenses have come up. It's just like a computer. Imagine that you have a computer with a certain programs downloaded when you buy the computer, but then you download new apps and new files in order to utilize these applications in your process. Now, if this process that you have downloaded is perfectionism, the file is called perfectionism, and you've downloaded this, and it becomes part of your day-to-day useful mechanisms of processing information. Now you have a file that eventually is not going to work for you. Maybe as a child, you being perfect gets you the attention, but then as an adult, this attention turns into a nervous system failure or anxiety or any of the other disorders that we discuss. It's not going to give you the results anymore. After a while, like a program that's obsolete or virus infected, this system gives up and is not doing what you have designed. You have got it when it was designed for you. On that note, so psychotherapy really helps with clearing these situations. And if you like to read more about it, I highly suggest that go to my book, Balancing the Wheel. And the book is on Amazon, and also you can get the audio version of the book, which is on audiobooks.com. You are welcome to take a look at the solutions for perfectionism and how the 8 spokes of the wheel, that's a topic that we've been discussing in every program, because I truly believe it's not something that I could claim that I have originated, but I have put it together. These 8 spokes are physical, mental, emotional, relational, recreational, environmental, spiritual, and financial. These are the 8 areas of life that anyone, including a perfectionist, will be somewhat engaged in during every day of life and during every process that they take on. Now, imagine if you're a perfectionist and in these 8 areas, you are consistently needing to be at number 10 from a 0 to 10 scale. The pressure is going to break you down. The push and the pursuit is going to be exhausting. And now there are moments that you cannot be at 10 and you go to 8, and now you're suffering because you're at 8. So the suffering is going to continue if we're not balanced. And balancing the wheel is a way how you can be in a equilibrium, in a position that you are not one way or another. You are not necessarily at the perfect level or at the lost level. What I want to suggest to perfectionists is that apply a 80-20 rule. Instead of wanting 100% of everything to be correct and true to the way that you want to see it, allow a percentage, allow 20% not to be perfect, not to be exactly as you want. Sometimes I suggest to the dear people who come to me with OCDs is leave the dishes over the night. Don't wash them. And once they do that, after a couple of times that they kind of force themselves in the beginning to do that, they start feeling a lot of relief, a lot of release, that they're not stuck with a chore that it has to be done in the way that they think. So very small practices just like that. Let go of the exact thing that you want to do and allow for some deviance from it. Allow 20% of deviation, and I think that would be helpful. Another thing that could be very helpful to you is the self-talk. When we talked about this child who's designed these programs, the defensive programs, to feel secure and loved and attended and cared for. Now, if those programs are not working today, the child still is in there. That I'm really big on the concept of the inner child, and those who work with me, they know how important the dialogue between this inner child and the adult is. Often enough, there is only one voice inside of us. We're not hearing anything else. So the child and the adult, they look to be in one body, one shape as they are. But now the characters are two different characters. The child is the anxious one. The child is the perfectionist one. Once we introduce the adult into this concept, now the adult part of us is able to have a self-talk with the child part of us. In therapy, we work with this a lot, but then if you can develop this for yourself and have a different angle, a different point of view from yourself into yourself, there is an adult who is not allowing the child to be criticizing them, to tell them that they're not good enough, that they're a failure, that they're guilty. Those are the voices of the child, and we don't realize it, and we just suffer from this voice without being able to do anything about them. However, when we have that adult voice coming to the picture, then the child can be functioning under the supervision of the adult and feel safe. Remember, this child has only 2 functions, and you need to attend to those 2 for the child to be happy: playfulness and learning. So you're responsible to educate this child and provide fun environment for them to grow. The rest of this should be adult. Another way that you can help this is to let go of the end results. You want to do something. Yes, you have planned it. You have, created a roadmap to reach somewhere. Instead of focusing on that end goal, you can just look at the steps that you're taking and enjoy every step that you take, and look forward like you're going on a journey again, and you want to enjoy every step of this journey without being focused on the final destination. That would help you a lot. When you go to our website, Balancing the Wheel, there is a test, there is a quiz. It's called the wheel quiz, and once you take that test, you can see how balanced or imbalanced these 8 areas, these 8 spokes are, and according to according to those areas, you can figure out in what areas you need to pay more attention, more focus, and create more balance. And in some areas that you have some strength, you can see how this strength can even help others, and you can utilize this strength in a way that is shared with others, without just being focused on inside of you. Creating such balance, such equanimity, such equilibrium is really important to feel peace and freedom. Peace and freedom. These are the two components of humanity. We would like to feel free and we would like to feel peaceful. However, life is not easy. Life creates obstacles. Life throws, some stones in our way, and we may get stuck, or we may just, lose our balance in the process. Through this pandemic, the OCD or people who have obsessive compulsive disorder may find themselves more comfortable because we have gone to this to be more perfectly clean, more perfectly distanced, more perfectly hygiened in order to avoid this disease. However, do not mix that up with your tendency to be a perfectionist in everything else. If it's easy for you in this time to be that perfectionist, good for you, and utilize it and stay clean and disinfected. But realize that this type of perfection cannot be all of your life, cannot be attended to in every part of your life. Give that 20% in other areas that you can let go. In balancing the wheel, we are discussing all of this, and on Wheel of Wellbeing, a lot of information in our membership section, which is called Will Select, are there for free. There are books, there are many different articles, exercises. You're more than welcome to take a look at this site and see what you can use from it. There are so many different ways that we can bring balance to our lives, only if we know how to do it. If we don't know it, it's very difficult to achieve it. But once we learn how these possibilities are there, we know that we can change. We are not stuck with our situations. We are not stuck with the outcomes. Then there is hope. And I'm really hoping through the bottom of my heart that you may consider these changes. Even if you're not a perfectionist, you can always support someone to have more understanding of the situation when you're sharing with them how you feel in relationship with them, when you can share with them how you're disturbed, how you're bothered. Do not make it about them. Don't point out at them, you're so and so, you're such and such. You need to take responsibility for yourself and announce your feelings. If you didn't see the program that we had before about feelings, please go on the archives on togethernessmedia.com, The Evolving Mind. All of our programs are archived there, and you're more than welcome to go and visit any of these particular programs. There's one about freedom that we had last week, and about feelings. Both of those are really important factors in letting go of perfectionism. I hope you can help yourself, help someone else, and enjoy life that you deserve. Until our next program, I wish you the best and looking forward to seeing you soon. Have a blessed day.